Hey everyone, we're going to talk about graphing today. So first I want to introduce the different types of graphs you should know, but you should also be able to determine the type of graph when you are given a question on graphing. So with Cambridge, sometimes they will tell you to plot, which means, hey, I'm doing a line graph. But sometimes it's a little more vague. So you should know anytime you're plotting a graph, you're doing quantitative values, which means it's a line graph. So quantitative values are going to be a line graph. That's anything that's a number. Then we have bar graphs. Bar graphs are going to be looking at qualitative and quantitative information. So qualitative could be a location like A, B, C, D, or rocky shore versus sandy shore. And then quantities are, again, the numbers. Histograms. Histograms are numbers. However, the independent variable is a range of numbers. So it's 0 to 5. The next range could be 5 to 10. And we're going to go over what a histogram would look like as well. Now, what materials should you have? Well, the first thing is you should definitely have a pencil. We always graph in pencil. You should have a ruler. Yes, you need to make sure you're using a ruler, whether you're connecting points or making bars. And finally, a calculator. You're going to figure out why in just a moment, once we start going through each graph, why it would be wise to have a calculator. A line graph. We're going to look when there is a single dependent variable, meaning you're looking at one x-axis and one y-axis. You're always going to be given a table with information that you need to plot. Whenever you have a table, always remember your x is the first set of information that you see on a table. So it's on the left side, x-axis, and that is your independent variable, always comes first on the left-hand side. Then you have on the right side, the y-axis, which is going to be your dependent variable, always. So how are you going to remember this? Dry mix. So dependent responding variable is on the y-axis. Manipulated independent variable would be on the x-axis. So dependent y, independent x. The next thing you're going to do is check your graph out. See how big it is, how wide it is, and how tall it is. Notice how this graph, it's not equally as wide as it is tall. So what I would do is, remember, we're going to start at 0, but before we do anything, we want to copy the independent variable title exactly as we see it on our table. So yes, you need to write rate of ocean floor spreading / millimeter per year. So we're going to go ahead and make sure we have it exactly like Cambridge wrote it. Do not change anything. I also want you to title your y-axis right now to make sure that you don't forget when you go to scale. Yes, copy it exactly. Mean number of hydrothermal vents per 100 kilometer squared. So yes, you need to copy it exactly. Again, don't change anything. You can write your y-axis either horizontally or vertically, okay? Doesn't matter as long as it's titled correctly. Leave some space between your title and the graph itself so that you can fit your numbers. Now we're going to scale our x-axis and then we will scale our y-axis. What does it mean to scale? It means to make sure that each number you write down on the x-axis to plot a point is equally spaced from one another. So to scale your axis, and this is going to be for both, but the numbers will be different because our numbers are different for our independent and dependent variables. We're going to scale by taking the high number minus the low number. So you always take your high number minus low number divided by the number of boxes or the number of darkened lines. And I'm actually going to say large boxes because we see a lot of boxes on the graph below. So number of boxes or number of darkened lines, either will work. For our x-axis, right, we need to first figure out, are our boxes the same size? So let's go ahead and count from darkened line to darkened line, the small boxes we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. If we count it up, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. These large boxes are made up of 100 small boxes. So it is a 10 by 10 square. So I'm going to put every darkened line a small hash, and that's going to be where I put a number down. But I don't know what number yet, right? I'm looking at my data. I have 39 all the way up to 140. So I don't know what to count by. A rule of thumb is you always count by 1, 2, 5, or 10. I probably shouldn't count by 1 because I'd have to use every single small square. So let's make this easy. How many large boxes do we have across the bottom? We have 7. So that's what we're going to follow. You can do 8 hashes, which are the darkened lines that we wrote a little hash for, or you can do large boxes. For our X scale, the high number we have, 140, we're going to subtract 39 and divide by the number of large boxes that we just counted, which was 7. Now this is why you may want a calculator. 140 minus 39 divided by 7. You get 14.4. I think it's safe to say that we can say 14. We always multiply by 2. The reason why we always multiply by 2 is because we need a range. We don't know what we're counting by still. So now that we have 2 numbers, we want to find a number that's either 14, greater than 14, but not greater than 28. So a number that's in between 14 and 28. Remember, I said we only count by 1, 2, 5, or 10. So we cannot count by 14, but we can count by 20. We also can count by 25. Both of those are multiples of 5 or 10. So we're going to go ahead and test out if we were to count by 20 across the bottom. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140. Let's see if we included the lowest number, which could be under 20, up to the greatest number, which could only go up to 140. Yeah, we included 39, right? That's a little greater than 20. And 140 is our very last number. So we scaled correctly. Before we graph, we also have to do this for our y-axis. So on the y-axis, for our dependent variable, our scale will be our new dependent variable high number, which is 6.2. We're going to subtract our low number for our dependent variable, which is 1.8. We don't know the number of boxes, so let's count our number of boxes. I'm going to first put my hashes along the side so I know where my darkened lines are. And again, you can count by darkened lines, but I'm going to keep it the same. I'm going to count by large squares. This one is 8. So we're going to divide by 8. So 6.2 minus 1.8 divided by 8. We get 0.55, and then we do the always step, which is to multiply by 2. And we get 1.1. So we can count by any number that is in between 0.55 and 1. A nice easy number we can count by is, well, the number 1. So let's count by 1. We're going to write our number on the darkened line that we drew a hash for. Did we include our lowest number? Yes, it's 1.8. We have 1 all the way to 8, so we're okay. Did we include our highest number? Yes, it's 6.2. We went all the way up to 8. Then you graph your points. When you graph your points, you're going to make sure that you either use a bullseye or an X. So let's go ahead and graph just a couple of points. The first one should be 39 to 1.8. Well, everybody knows on the left-hand side that we actually have half marks in between each of our numbers. And you wouldn't write that on your exam, but it could be helpful for you when you're graphing. Also, every 5 squares, 5 small squares, we're going to have 10. So we actually counted by 10 across the bottom. That might make it a little easier for when we graph now. So we're going to go ahead and look 39 to 1.8. We know 39 is definitely closer to 40, right? So 39 is going to be right after or even right before 40 or right after the line before 40. And we're going to put our point at 1.8. And you'll put a nice small X. A pencil is important because if you do make a mistake, you want to be able to erase it. The next point is 55 and 2.5. So 55 is going to be about halfway from 50, which would be here, to 60. So 55 and 2.5. So I'm making small X's, and then you're going to connect your points with a nice straight line. Please do not go to the point of origin. We do not connect our line to 0. We do not have data at 0, so we do not finish a line that isn't on our graph. We do not start a line that is not on our table. So if we don't have data, please do not graph it. So once you're finished graphing all of the points from your table onto your graph should look like this. Next thing we're going to work on is our bar graph or bar chart. A little bit different because now we're looking at categories instead of only numbers. We have categories and then our dependent variable would be numbers. For a bar graph, we're going to follow the same setup, the same rule where we take our independent variable, write it exactly as we are given on our table, and then same thing goes for the dependent variable, write it exactly as we are given from our table. Then you're going to figure out how to space your bars across the bottom. There are 5 different independent variables. So I always number everything so that you're able to see when you're taking a test. I also recommend practicing this when you're taking a test. You can see how many different variables there are. So for the independent variable, they're looking at 5 different taxon. Across the bottom, I'm going to look at the darkened lines. That's going to be my gauge to figure out where I'm going to put my taxon names. So across the bottom, I have 8 darkened lines, including the point of origin. And so that means I'm going to have 7 boxes. I'm not going to write anything on that very first line. So I'm actually going to say that I have 7 darkened lines. Now, good rule of thumb, if you have 7 boxes to fill and you have 7 of those darkened lines and 5 sets of data, I recommend going ahead and writing on every darkened line, the taxon name. We have reptiles, crustaceans, and finally mollusks. Now I might not be using the last two lines, but that's okay because I'm definitely using more than 50% of my graph. I'm gonna go ahead and erase the numbers and then you can move on. I want to make sure that I also scale my y-axis. For the y-axis, we're going back to what we did for the line graph. The scale for y, you would take your high number minus your low number and then divide by the number of boxes, or you can divide by the number of darkened lines. So just like the line graph, we have 8 boxes. So 8 boxes going up the left-hand side of our graph. Again, remember you have a calculator when you're graphing for when you take 900 to minus 50 divided by 8. You're going to get 106. 106 times 2, because we always multiply by 2, gives us 212.5. So we can actually round that up to 213. We only count by 1, 2, 5, or 10. So I would probably look at a number in between 106 and 203. The highest number that I can do is 200. So on the left-hand side, on all the darkened lines, you're going to count by 200. So again, I don't need to continue all the way up the left-hand side. The next thing you're going to do is, since we use more than 50% of our graph, we can go ahead and start to draw our bars. The first one is fish, all the way up to 900. I recommend to make your bar nice and straight, so you would use a ruler. We're going to go all the way up to 900. And we're going to make our bar at a minimum 4 wide. Notice I'm going to 6 wide, so 3 on each side of my darkened line. You're going to do the same thing for mammals, only we're going to go up to 50 instead. So I'm going to keep it the same. This bar is going to be much lower. And again, 3 boxes on either side of my darkened line. Then reptiles, 100 and 150 and 100. And 3 boxes on either side. Notice how I have equal spacing in between, and I'll show you 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you want to make sure that the bars are the same width and that the space in between each bar is the same on fish to mammals, mammals to reptiles, reptiles to crustaceans, and to mollusks. And this is what your bar graph should look like when you are all finished. Now moving on to histograms. So histograms have numbers, but the independent variable is usually a range of numbers. So here we have location, which is measured in meters. We have 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15 is a label hour, independent, copy it exactly as we, and then we're going to label our dependent variables. So the dependent variable is the average number of barnacles. We're going to go ahead and make sure there is enough space for us to write numbers. Next, what we're going to do is we should figure out how we should scale. Like I said, we're going to scale just like we did for our bar graph. So for every darkened line, except for the very first one, which is the 0, 0 point of origin, we are going to write our range, which the first one is 0 to 5. Then we have 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 20, and last 20 to 25. Once we have that, now we can do our scale for the y-axis. We're still going to do our normal scale, even though you see probably the easiest number to count by is 10, but we're just going to do the scale to make sure that our scale will work. So scale for the y, high number minus our low number, and divided by, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or you can do number of darkened lines. Again, don't count the very bottom line because so 90 minus 10 divided by 8, we're going to get 10. 10 times 2, 20. So we can count by 1, 2, 5, or 10. In this case, I think that counting by 20 would be perfect. We're going to give that a try. So on every darkened line, we are going to write 20, 40, 60, 80. Now, what we're going to do is draw our histogram. So, first things first, 0 to 5, we should be going up. So it should be 5 on either side. And of course, we should have a straight line. Okay. Next one, we're going to do the same thing. Remember, the 5 to 10 should be touching our 0 to 5. So 5 to 10 should go up to 40. So up to 40 we go. This one again, 5 boxes wide on either side of our line. Back, if you think that maybe you made a mistake and you want to make sure that all the boxes are the same width, this time we're doing 5 boxes on either side so that each data point, 10 to 15, we're going to go up to 70. And again, this will be 5 boxes wide on either side. $15 to $20. Again, touching the 10 to 15. 5 boxes wide on either side. And last but not least, we are going to do 20 to 25. And that bar will go all the way up to 20. And there's your histogram. So here we have 10, 40, 70, 90, and 20.